Thomas Savage is a research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, and Tommy Aiello is Senior Director of Government Affairs at the National Taxpayers Union. Gentlemen, we were just back here during that.
Not awkward at all.
Not awkward at all. Just giggling uncontrollably because of what the president just kind of pulled out there, literally showing the receipts to the chairman. Thomas, to you first. These tactics here that the president uses, sometimes, they are a little bit funny. They elicit a slight giggle. But he's telling the truth, right? They're spending so much money on renovations, yet refusing to lowering rates for the rest of us. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm sorry, is that to Tommy or Thomas?
Thomas Savage first.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, too many times. But it's really, it highlights something that has been true since the Federal Reserve was created. There's a toxic relationship between the Federal Reserve and the White House. And this has gone on longer than President Trump, longer than Jerome Powell's been there. And really what you need to see is a clear, consistent monetary rule. That way, the White House can't lean on the Federal Reserve to try to accommodate what they want. And in the same way, it means the Fed can't get involved in mission creep either. Just have one simple rule, control the money supply, and that's all you need, because otherwise you end up with these really awkward situations.
This was awkward. I mean, it made for good television, I'll give you that. But watching that moment, again, watching Marine One arrive now with the president, but the president with Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Look, Tommy Aiello, we watched the Truth Socials back and forth of the name calling. I forget some of them. What did he call them? Too late, and there's a new one that he had. But either way, he's there shoulder to shoulder with him, calls him out on a number. You see Jerome Powell not scared to buck the president, shakes his head, basically tells him he's wrong, and then he pulls out the receipt. Then Trump slaps him on the back in that moment, lower those interest rates. What did you make overall of that exchange?
Yeah, look, the Fed is an independent agency, so they are able to do what they want. They can lower interest rates as much as they want or raise interest rates as much as they want. And I think if you look at the macro economy right now, things are generally pretty good. Jobless claims are constant and down. The economy is strong, and inflation is pretty much tamed. That's what the data says. So, I'm sort of shaking my head as to why we're keeping the federal funds rate where it is and we're not lowering costs. If you lower interest rates, you'll lower mortgage costs, and of course you will cut debt servicing costs on our very large federal deficit.
Right. It's tough on the average American now, even if things are getting slightly better, inflation lowering slightly, not as high as it was. But still, those interest rates are really high. Young, new families finding it very difficult to buy a house. If you're trying to sell your house, you're scared to go out and buy a house. So it's just making things a little bit more difficult on everyday Americans. Thomas, what's your take on this? Do you think that we really need to see sort of interest rates to go down before Americans can start reliving the American dream?
I think the interest rates need to go down, but they need to do it very cautiously. Again, they're working with the data that they have, and that's kind of gets back to my earlier point, is that if you just stick to a monetary rule, one simple rule, the interest rates can adjust more with the market without any pressure from outside forces or discretion and mission creep and Fed officials just trying to make a name for themselves. But yeah, the interest rates need to come down, but they need to do so cautiously. They need to be careful how they do it and not jump the gun, not overstep their bounds.
Sure. Let's talk about the workforce, if I can. Control, this is C03, the jobless claims. We pulled this number here. Applications for jobless benefits fell for a sixth straight week. The Labor Department reporting that jobless claims or unemployment claims for the week ending in July 19th fell by 4,000, so down to 217,000. Historically low levels here. That from the Associated Press and others, but from the Labor Department. Tommy, I'll go to you on that as we await the president to depart for Scotland. He's in the middle of this trip here, transferring from Marine One to Air Force One in this moment here. But as we watch for that, just talk to us about the historic low unemployment numbers that we see continue to fall and beating expectations, mind you. That's a big one.
Yeah, I feel like we're always beating expectations, which is a good thing. Look, the more people that we have working, it means fewer people that are on government benefits. And
Yeah.
I think when you take into account what Republicans and the president did the last couple of weeks with passing the one big beautiful bill, it'll give businesses even more certainty to pick up hiring and to make those investments that they would otherwise have not made if they didn't have the tax certainty. So it is really good news. I'm confident that the job numbers will continue to improve. The one thing that I am a little concerned about in the data is the continuing jobless claims. Those are people that don't have a job and can't find a job that actually ticked up. So, we'll have to see how the data shakes out over the next few weeks.
Yeah, we're watching, just pausing the economic segment just for a brief moment here as we see President Trump leaving Marine One, heading to Air Force One, to board Air Force One in this moment. Just potting up the sound here as you can hear the jet engine there. It appears as he salutes in this moment here, and again, yeah, there's Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary behind him, as well as others in the administration, the Secret Service. So again, you got a nod there. We were wondering, as he's boarding now, we were wondering if he potentially would be speaking to the press ahead of this 5-day trip, visiting his golf resorts, but obviously having that big meeting with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in regards to the ongoing UK trade deal. There is a framework there for a trade deal, at least right now. He waves to the cameras, to the media, and again, then boards Air Force One in this moment. Again, a 5-day trip heading off to Scotland. I'll bring you men back in for this. And there's the press secretary, obviously, and other members, and Stephen Miller and others, members of the Trump administration, departing as well. And I'll go back to Thomas Savage on this one. I wanted to bring up just the tariffs, the trade deals themselves. It appears that as we go, even with the recent Japan trade deal, 15% reciprocal tariffs there, more than $500 billion being invested, seeing 90% of that profit. Yeah, then and you see it here where the president talked about it on Truth Social. But he's going to be speaking with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, about their trade deal with the UK. A lot of people balked, and when I say they, I mean economists, and you know this as well as I do. They balked at these tariffs, and now it appears they're not hurting as much as many expected, and this has a lot of surprise to those watching the markets, watching the economy. Where do you fall on that, Thomas?
Well, this will be an interesting thing to see. Having some certainty there, as Tommy mentioned earlier, is always a good thing. When you have that certainty, it gives people the ability to plan around it, even if there are new cases of tariffs and new taxes that come into play in your production process. But I think as far as seeing how that might affect markets, we're going to have to wait and see. Because over time, really, people will adjust. They might not be able to adjust right away because of the given aspects of their business or the given aspects of their work. They're going to adjust. The more time that passes, the more opportunities they will have to adjust, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But hopefully, some more good news out of this trip abroad for the president, and reducing some of that uncertainty with where, if, how there are going to be tariffs, and what the trade deals will look like going forward. So hopefully, some good news on that front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, economic prosperity deal, that is what this is dubbed. So they have some sort of agreement there, and they're going to advance that. We'll watch and see how that one plays out. By the way, I think that was the quickest I've seen Trump get on Air Force One, pull the staircase away and get out.
He's ready to go.
Yeah, they are behind schedule. They were supposed to leave at 8 a.m., so I think they want to get going because obviously they're going to land a little later now. But he was in and out, only waving to reporters. I got the sense he wanted to talk to us.
Right, he always wants to.
but it didn't happen there. Of course, there is a gaggle on board. I want to say thank you so much to Thomas Savage and Tommy Aiello for joining us here on this Friday morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.